Hi everyone, welcome to Ubble's webinar. We are very happy to welcome you today, and I hope you can hear us well and that you will enjoy this webinar. In any case, you can write anything into the chat in the right part of your screen in order to ask some question or to do some remarks. We will be very happy to try to answer to everyone. So I'm Gabrielle. I'm investment director at BlackFin. We are a fintech fund focused on European deals, and I'm very happy to welcome here Juliette, Stéphie, and Jean-Jacques. Building an onboarding journey that complies with all the European KYC rules is a real puzzle and a real challenge for banks and fintech startups. So we are going to see today how any banks and fintech can deal with that. And if you want to know how to deploy financial services in Europe within a complex KYC regulatory ecosystem, you're in the right place today. So welcome everyone. So a warm welcome to Stéphie. So Stéphie Ndinga is Chief Compliance Officer at Swan. So I guess everyone here knows Swan, but for those who don't, maybe. Swan is a banking platform based in France that lets you embed any banking services directly into your product. So they are already present in Europe, and that's why it's very interesting to have Stéphie today in order to discuss about the international expansion of such a product. And we also welcome Jean-Jacques. Jean-Jacques Le Bon is a partner and co-founder at Bipart Consulting. And Bipart helps bank and fintech dealing with regulatory risk, banking, and IT processes. And last but not least, Juliette, welcome. Juliette Delanoe is a ubble co-founder and VP marketing. She contributed to several identity proofing standards in Europe, like ANSI, for example, the Agence Nationale de la Sécurité des Systèmes d'Information. And she advised several public organizations, including SCPR, ECB, EBA, DG Connect, and ENISA. So welcome, everyone. And we are gonna start with the first question here. So as you can see on the slide, we will so have several parts in our webinar. The first question we have is regarding the complex international regulation on KYC. So maybe Jean-Jacques can start answering the question. Why can internationalization be a key point for fintech? Why is it important? And why it's a challenge today for all the fintech startups?
Thank you for the handover, Gabrielle. So for a lot of, in fintechs, basically in the fintech world, we have a number of issues. The first one, when it comes to internationalization, is basically the question of which status you are on. So usually fintechs are either payment institutions, EMIs, or banks, more rarely banks. Usually start with one starting country, which usually has a regulatory status. And that is the country on which your KYC applies firstly. And in Europe, you have the possibility to passport your license to other countries. And there's the easiest way, I would say, which is the first one is it's freedom to provide services, which would allow you to passport your services to almost every European country, but with one limit, and that limit is that it is one KYC standard, that of your home country, that would apply to all the other countries, which means that basically, if, let's say, you were a French regulated bank or payment institution, you would want to provide services in Italy to Italian clients. With that passport, you would be able to provide those services in Italy, but then the applicable KYC would be the French one. Mm-hmm. The problem with that approach, which is the first one you see, one size fits all using FPS, is that with that setup, you would have a big reach, but very low local adaptation. So it would mean for the very concrete problem for fintechs, you would be working in Italy with a French IBAN, and you would be working in Italy with French standards. And that, for a number of fintechs or banks, is a challenge. The second approach is the one we often see of a step-by-step approach for internationalization. So taking the same example, you start by France, and you want to go to Italy, and you want to be as local as possible. So what you would need to do is to open, and this time, a local branch. It would mean then that you would onboard clients in Italy through the branch, and in that case, you would be able to get a local IBAN, so an Italian IBAN. But the problem is that you would be applying Italian rules to your Italian onboarded clients. There starts the complexity. The complexity starts when basically in the same company, you would have two standards living together, one for France, one for Italy. And you can add that to as many countries to which you would be extending your activities to. And that is where the complexity starts. And why is there complexity? There is complexity because basically the rules might change. So what you might be looking for is probably going on the third part is how can I optimize my international footprint? Where should I have an approach where I'm using FPS? Where should the countries where I should have branches? What are the price differences? And how can I find a way to probably have probably one single approach for KYC for all the countries? So usually what fintechs or banks would do or are going to try to find an optimized strategy to kind of digest that complexity on KYC in the different countries to find probably the easiest approach to apply the same rules in each country. That is a question we'll be following up on a little bit later.
That's very interesting. And maybe, Stéphie, can you give us more examples regarding this internationalization? So you're the Chief Compliance Officer at Swan, and so you may have many stories about such challenges.
Yeah, so just to paint a picture, so at Swan, we are a bank as a services, and we provide payment services to fintechs or maybe like software companies, such as like bank account, card, or even transfers. And the thing is that they embed our payment services and our feature into their own product. So as Jean-Jacques was saying, it's a bit complicated to like reach the optimum point to do like the best KYC that we can have and the less complex for our tech part, but we also have to be competitive. And sometimes some countries are less restrictive than the other, and doing like a global KYC can make us less competitive. And if we are less competitive, it's not good for our partners. So since we are in 30 countries now, and we're trying to have like a local presence in Spain and in Germany, I will say, and I will be totally agree with Jean-Jacques, is that we are searching for the optimum way, but it's like a really like big pain point for us now to have like a standard type of KYC. So what we are doing now is really to have a specific KYC in each country, and based on that, we're waiting for like a global solution to standardize it. So that's it for the part of the operational view.
And regarding the fragmentation of the KYC, maybe Stéphie, can you explain us a little bit more about this complex challenge for startups and banks to go international?
Yeah.
What are the impacts of this KYC fragmentation for?
So, for example, now we are following the French rule, so it's like pretty easy now to just follow the French interpretation of the European regulation. But since as I say, we want to open new branches in Spain and in Germany, as I say, like one single KYC for one country. So it's it's a bit complicated for us to standardize it, and the fact that each country has its own interpretation. It makes us very complex, and the fact that we are not the final provider, and we have to go through partners. As I say, the strategy that we are using now is really like to do 3 different onboarding process for each country to stay competitive. So it's a pain point, because each time there is a new law in one country, we need to change everything, and we need to change the onboarding process. And from a tech perspective, sometimes we have to change one process, and it will impact the other 2 processes. For example, for the KYC identification, for example, few of them require like a video. Some of them just require to send just a copy of it, or most of the time they're asking us to have sometimes a video call with the client. So there is a huge human cost, and there is like a huge like tech implementation that we need to do. We're hoping that from now we will have like one solution to standardize the KYC process, and I'm pretty sure that it will arrive soon.
Yes, we all hope so. And Jean-Jacques, do you have any comments on this KYC fragmentation issue to go international?
There might be 2 ways of like thinking about the subject. So I would kind of distinguish the fact that if you have a great number of countries on which basically have a span on, and I'm taking back what Stéphie mentioned, is that if you have countries where you have strong presence, a lot of clients you need to onboard, and the need to feel very local, there's unfortunately very little way to escape from implementing something that is very local. So in any case, you might have that kind of fragmentation onto it. But some of the clients I have another approach, which is, let's take the hardest approach to KYC of all the countries, and let's try to apply that to all the countries. And that's kind of another problem. That is sometimes a solution that is chosen by banks. But the main problem with that approach is that when you're on a very competitive market, it is not at all user-friendly. So I would kind of add as a transition that not only we are looking for something that would simplify the norm, to have something that is harmonized in all the countries, but also to have something that is also client-friendly, UX-friendly, and client acquisition-friendly.
Yeah, sure. And so thanks for all these details and an example of the difficulties to go international.
I would like to add something, yes, like more with what Jean-Jacques say, and we have to pay attention on the fact that being like a business-oriented type of company, and to be an individual, when you like onboarding legal company, is not the same way when you're onboarding individual. For example, it's easy for individual kind of market or business to do like a strong KYC, but when you want to be very competitive and with like legal entities, it's way more complicated to have something like in general, because it won't work. I mean, like one person can be okay to do like a complex type of onboarding because you really want to open an account. But for example, a company, and even when you're working with partners, you can lose the deal because your KYC is too complicated.
So you mean B2C is maybe more easy to scale?
I would say like the acquisition, if your product is good and then your features that you're offering are good, it's way less complicated to get a good acquisition rate than when you're doing it in B2B.
Okay, very interesting. Thanks for this comment. And maybe there are some solutions to this fragmentation and all these challenges faced by banks and fintech startups to go international. I guess Juliette can explain us more details about this. I've heard there are like QES that could crack this problem. Can you elaborate on that, please, Juliette?
Yes, thank you very much, Gabrielle. So most banks facing this issue are using identity proofing solution. I mean, at least fintechs bank and banks that are working on a digital user journey. And there is a solution that is quite recent and that is not extremely well known in the market, but that is growing quite a lot in terms of importance, and we wanted to share our understanding of why this is interesting for fintechs and for bank in general. And this solution is called Qualified Electronic Signature. So it's QES. Okay, so if we can move, so I can move to the next slide. So basically, first question is, what is a qualified electronic signature? It's composed of three main blocks that are both functional and technical. First block is identity proofing. So that should be, of course, remote if you want to have a digital customer journey. Once you have verified the identity of the user, you have proved his identity, you can issue a kind of certificate. So it's a token. It's very similar to the way payments work. So basically, you verify the identity, you issue the token, and the user will reuse this token to sign. So this is digital signature. You have two main types of actors to build such solution. You are identity proofing provider, such as ubble, and you have electronic signature provider, such as in our partner, we have uSign, we have DocuSign, we have UniverSign. Basically, if there is a sign at the end, it's a good sign, if I may. So this is important to understand that. So basically, to provide qualified electronic signature to the market, it's mainly a partnership between one identity proofing provider and one electronic signature partner that work together in an integrated solution. So why is it interesting? Basically, you may have heard about the eIDAS regulation. So you guys are working on the AML, so anti-money laundering. eIDAS is a different world. It means electronic identity, authentication, and signature. So it's more related to the cybersecurity industry, and it's a regulation, meaning it's super harmonized at the European level, at least in terms of recognition. So basically, identity proofing is not regulated by eIDAS because it's a new business and it's not inside the scope of eIDAS. Electronic signature are. So they are regulated by eIDAS. It means that if France, for instance, certified qualified electronic signature, it will be automatically recognized by the 27 member states. So it's super powerful. It's automatic. There is no additional move to be done. It's direct. It's interesting because AML regulator, local ones, have spotted eIDAS as a way to create trust in the identity business. It's a big advantage for them because electronic signature provider with identity proofing are audited and they are validated by the experts, local experts of cybersecurity. And identity can be quite a complex topic. So for instance, in our PVID certification, we're talking about 40 days of audits by specialists, pen test. So it's an important process. And AML regulators are more and more referring to eIDAS and qualified electronic signature as a good way to perform KYC in their country. So we can see it in France, we can see it in Germany, we can see it in Italy, we can see it in Spain, and it's starting to get more and more attention. The Electronic Banking Authority has recommended that national regulators rely on eIDAS for KYC. There is another organization that have done that. It's called GAFI in French. It's basically the US NGO that makes recommendation regarding AML at the worldwide level. And they have explicitly mentioned eIDAS as a good way to perform KYC. So this trend is quite recent, but is backed by strong facts that is going to be future-proof. Okay, so what it means concretely for fintechs, it means that tomorrow, if you build a user journey using qualified electronic signature, you will be able to use the same provider to comply in many different countries and locally. So it's a way, an efficient way to limit the number of providers. If, like Swan and maybe others, you are also interested in France, it's also interesting to combine with PVID, because electronic signature, you add a step, okay? So the user needs to sign a contract. In France, it's not a must. You can use the PVID and you don't need a signature. So signature can be interesting to go abroad, and for France, with the same kind of provider, you can just do the identity proofing part, which is better in terms of user journey and, of course, in terms of conversion, which is, critical for you guys.
Yes, and Stéphie and Jean-Jacques, did you know about this solution, and what is your feedback on QES? Have you tried this new tool?
Maybe Jean-Jacques, you want to start? Or...
Go ahead, start.
Okay. So for me, yeah, the fact that ubble we have the pivot and like to think in a bigger picture, the QES will be like a great plus for us. I mean, it will reduce by maybe 2 or 3 times our pain point today, because it would allow us not to do like the first on the French part, not to do like all the first bank transfer for an individual or something like that, but like way bigger. It will allow us just to go through Europe with the same tool. As I say, we have taken the decision to do one onboarding process per country, and the fact that the QES will be available, which allow us like just to do one type of KYC onboarding, or maybe like 60% of one main onboarding, and then we will like implement few things depending on the country. So yeah, it will be like a great plus. And the fact that we can do it with ubble is that we can do it for business partnership and also for individual partnership. So it's a great plus as well. And I really think that if like we can use it, and most company can play the game and can play along with us to increase the engagement rate, I think it will be like a good solution to resolve most of our pain points. So that's what I think for like a very operational point of view.
Okay. Thanks for this feedback. And Jean-Jacques, do you have any thoughts regarding QES?
Yes, just like a few reactions. One, which I find very interesting, is that it's not only a possibility that is possible given by the kind of European regulations, but also that because it will also be verified and kind of certified by each national authority, that is probably a very strong point, because at least it means that the companies are not the ones doing the effort to make it nationally compliant, but the national authorities will kind of pre-validate that part. So this point is very interesting. And elaborating also on Stéphie's point, I think also very interesting is that a lot of people that are going international also have this issue that they want to have something that is harmonized or optimized across all the countries. But there's also a big question for most of the companies is, I would like to have one single provider, technical provider, capable of providing me that kind of solution for all the countries, and not to have different companies do that part, KYC for each country. And so this is a kind of 2 pain points in itself that might be also resolved.
Okay, thanks. And so we hear very well these pain points, and maybe Juliette, can you elaborate a little bit about the QES advantages and maybe amongst all the offers on the market today, which kind of QES offer makes sense for each case, and for front, for example, you mentioned also that PVID and QES can both make sense together. Do you have any feedback on this relevance?
Yes, definitely. So it's important to understand that this is a living market and with living standards. So electronic signature is an old business. It has been here for very long time. We know how to issue electronic certificates and use that for signing. It's not new technology, and as it is regulated at the European level, it's very well harmonized between member states on their practices to qualify providers. Basically, a qualified provider, it's like it's like a bank who has its license. So you get your license, you get your qualification in a given country, and then you can passport it in every country. It's the same mechanism, but for trust provider like electronic signature provider. So in terms of signature, it's well paved. So there are very well-known standards at the European level that are followed by member states. The leading standardization body regarding electronic signature is called ETSI, ETSI, and they basically define the rules every member state has to follow when issuing a qualification. There are still some local specificities, but that are mainly minor. When it comes to identity proofing, the picture is quite different. There are differences at national level because identity proofing is new and because it was not standardized. There was no standard existing, written, regarding how to perform a good identity proofing, and this is true at the worldwide level. Identity proofing was invented in 2015, and the regulator didn't have the time to follow. This has changed during the COVID crisis. COVID crisis has shown how it was important to onboard people online, and the regulators have decided to define rules because they felt that critical threats were there and that they needed to make sure the solutions used were trustful. Okay, so few standards were written. First one that we know there in France, so PVID, basically was one of the first one in the world. And you recently also had one by ETSI, ETSI, which is the main European standardization body for trust service, that also wrote a standard regarding how to perform a good identity proofing to issue qualified signature. So it's very localized in terms of topic. And you can see that PVID and ETSI are super well aligned. So you need video on the document and on the face. So video capture is critical. You need also a trusted cloud, meaning sovereign, so that government authorities can trust. So it's, American cloud is complicated, if I may. And you also need to have some kind of hybrid mode with review by human operator at one point. Okay, so those three pillars are here in PVID, and they are also here in the ETSI standards. ETSI standard was issued in 2021. So basically, they are in the market, provider of qualified electronic signatures that sell qualified electronic signature, but that does not comply with the latest identity proofing standards. So you can see providers that only capture one image photo-based of an identity document and that provide automatic answers, and they claim to be qualified. It's true because some member states didn't have the time to react to the latest standards. But you need to be careful because it means that the providers that you are choosing now might not be compliant in the future because they are not working on a sovereign cloud. They don't know how to work on video streams, and they don't have set up operations that are based in Europe. These are big pillars of operation, and if you don't have it now, you won't have it in 6 months. It's important to understand that. So PVID is a guarantee that the QS that you are selecting is really future-proof in terms of compliance. Another option is to verify that the identity proofing provider complies with ETSI standards. If they do not comply with ETSI standards, our advice is to look somewhere else. So at ubble, we are video-based, we are located in a sovereign cloud, and we work on hybrid. So you might say, okay, you have an incentive to say that. I can tell you that we are not the only one. Okay, our solutions are super user-friendly. We work a lot on conversion, and we try to differentiate on the quality of our service. Okay, but in terms of compliance on those 3 pillars, we are not the only one. So it's important for you to very check those 3 points and make sure that your provider comply with European standards.
Sure, I see there. Thank you, Juliette. I see there are many questions regarding this, and I guess our guests will be happy to answer them in few minutes. So don't hesitate to write any remarks or question in the chat in order to ease the Q&A session we'll have just after. So yes, regarding maybe to give a little sum up about all this discussion regarding scaling a company abroad and facing all the KYC fragmentation in terms of regulation in Europe. So we have seen that it's very difficult to understand all the KYC regulation in every country in Europe, and it brings a lot of challenges to banks, to both banks and fintech startups. But that there are some solutions to that. For example, the QES is a solution for many use cases, and we have reviewed these use cases together already. So we also saw that QES associated with the PVID enables a lot of use cases to be dealt with. So it's also a very interesting tool for all the stakeholders here. But maybe to talk about other solutions or other perspective of this KYC onboarding processes in Europe. Maybe Stéphie or Jean-Jacques, do you want to elaborate a little bit about other tools or other solutions that you've heard of, and also about the future of all these frameworks?
So once again, maybe Jean-Jacques, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I would say as other solutions, I haven't seen many other solutions that allows to answer this subject of kind of a global European harmonization of KYC. So I would say that it is really worth exploring. Probably my line of thinking is that the costs of adapting KYC to different countries, I think Stéphie will be able to elaborate this, is very high, both because of all the adaptations you need to do, but also the local teams, the people need to hire, the processes you need to change, and all of it. So I would say that if there's something new, and especially that seems to be easy and probably more cost efficient, I most certainly think that it is worth trying and at least testing it.
So yeah, I totally agree with Jean-Jacques. Is that from now, I mean, like each solution for me, they have like the same, like they're selling the same feature, but they don't resolve the issue that we have. So I don't really try other solution. And as I say, I'm waiting for ubble, since we're using ubble, to have those certification to move forward. But if at least they don't resolve at least 2 of 3 of our pain points, I won't even looking at it. So I don't like search for, and I don't heard about like something dealing and resolving our pain points. So I don't know.
Okay. And maybe thank you for this feedback. And maybe Juliette, do you have any guess for what will be like in few years, like in all this ecosystem in terms of regulation and in terms of tech?
Yeah. We are seeing an ecosystem that is getting more and more complex. With solutions that are qualified and others that are not, for identity proofing, some for electronic signature too. So electronic signature can be qualified, can be advanced, or can be simple. So there is different kind of level. Moreover, you will see more and more electronic identity schemes, national ones, such as La Poste Identité Numérique in France or SGIN. We have also ETSI in Belgium, Speed Identity in Italy, and users will get more and more digital identities on their mobile phone or on the web. So this shows a picture that is getting more and more complex, and you will need some kind of identity aggregators that will be able to propose different kinds of identity services to make sure that you can go abroad and manage localities and local specificities, and also have a universal solution that allow you to comply. So we are entering in the world of multi-service identity and aggregation, and it's super fun. It's a lot of innovation, and the picture is going to move quite seriously. Another thing is that when you have compliance, it's only getting up. The regulators have spotted that identity is a big topic for fintechs. It's getting also more and more hot in the crypto business. And KYC is under the spotlight. Electronic identity will be looked at, so better to well select your partner for those topics, better to select partners that are actually qualified, certified, and that complies with standards, because it's only going to get more and more differences and things to manage in this super exciting space. It's important for you because the first things a user does when you use your service is onboarding. And identity proofing, it's quite visible. So you also need to have, of course, a compliant provider, but a provider that is also super oriented toward your UX, your conversion, because at the end, you want users to succeed and to use your services as fast as possible.
Okay, thanks. We have many questions here, so thanks everyone to share your feedback and insight and questions. So first question is, I guess we can start with Jean-Jacques. So what are the differences amongst markets in Europe, and are there markets where you struggle the most with? You mentioned Italy, the example of Italy. Can you maybe elaborate about this market or others?
Yes, I mean, the main differences, I think Stéphie mentioned some of them. So there's like 3 main differences. The first difference is the difference in required documentation or processes. So especially regarding, for example, the use of video or not. And so this is one of the main first problems. The second problem is a problem more of people. So some countries require local reportings, local people to be able to address a number of things locally. So and those checks need to be done locally. So the second is the question of people, and the third usually also I would say is a question of even the question of proofing and processes. that might be different from country to country. So without a rule about this, but if we had to give a number of names, and probably I'll ask Stéphie her own appreciation, her live appreciation of the subject, but I would say, strangely enough, France is an easy country. And Spain, for example, or Italy are more complicated countries. And Germany used to be a complicated country, but because they also have had clarifications on the regulatory standpoint, it's become easier. Just talking about the big markets.
Yeah, thanks. And Stéphie, do you agree with that? I mean, regarding Italy, Spain, Germany, and France, what's your take on that? Which country is the worst in terms of KYC?
I mean, Spain is a tough one. Because I think like you have like all the KYC is not only the client ID identification, you also have to collect several supporting documents. And based on the country, for example, as Jean-Jacques explained in the beginning, when you're in LPS or when you have like a local branch there, you need like specific access to certain type of register. So yeah, I will say like Spain is a tough one. Italy is also a tough one, but not that tough. And I mean, like most of the time, we always thinking that French is the worst one, but it's not true. And since like in France, you have all this API type of connection that you can do. So for a KYC part, I would say Spain and Italy, yeah. And from like ID verification part, I will stay with Spain and Italy. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. You also mentioned, Stéphie, a big difference between B2C or like individual oriented and B2B businesses. There is a question regarding this. Maybe we can ask this question to Juliette. So QES is only resolves the problem for KYC for B2C companies. But for the B2B, you need the proof concerning the UBO. So can you maybe comment, Juliette, regarding, comment a little bit this difference between B2B and B2C in terms of KYC process and the relevance of QES for such challenges?
Yeah, sure. Basically, when you have to do a KYB, so know your business, that needs to comply with some kind of high level of security, meaning that you want to know truly who is the business in place. I'm talking about compliant onboardings. So it's most of the time in most European countries, you also have to do a KYC of the legal representative. So you have a physical person somewhere that you need to verify. So here, QS can be useful. But on top, you also need to collect additional information regarding the company, such as beneficial owners, such as KBs or the kind of document that represents the legal entity. And so it won't be enough, but it will be a block that can be reused between KYC and KYB. It's just that for KYB, you will need to add other functionalities on top. So I don't know if it answers to the question. It's not, the magical, like that solves every problem. It's just a block, a functional block that can simplify some of the fintechs problem when they want to get international and accelerate their internationalization. There will be other needs, of course, but this can be a solution that accelerates your expansion. And we thought it would be useful to mention it.
Yes,
if I may, there was another question regarding the
UBO, right?
Sorry?
The UBO, maybe?
UBO, I'm not sure what it means. I think it's beneficial owner.
Yes.
That's my guess. Exactly. Beneficial owners, basically, if you need to do that, today it's mainly a manual process to make sure that it's universal. You have some countries where there are open APIs. It's not the case everywhere. So basically, you will have to do this process manually most of the time.
And
and I really want to add some.
Yes, please.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. And I would like to add something because most of our clients, they businesses, so we really need to do the ubble verification. But I can guarantee you that from now, we're able to reach every register in Europe because you had like, except from Sweden, I think. But they have like public register which you can like go and consult instead of asking for bylaws or something like that. And I mean, like most of the country, they're getting digital. So for example, in France, you have like an open source API that you can reach. And I mean, like, it's not even the question of like identification or maybe getting a new tools. For me, it's like more the country who need to, which needs, to open the data and make sure that the onboarding process will be good. So even if ubble is doing like something magical, when the country are not open to share the data with other person, it won't be possible for you to do like an automation on the KYC.
So you mean for most European countries, there are registers that you can get access to in order to
99%, yeah, except for Sweden.
Sweden, or okay, all right. So it's kind of operational, but you still have to go for it for each country. So there is still
there are a number of kind of register aggregators that exist and that are starting to build up. And but I would say this is kind of a general problem today for most of the market. We're still kind of work in progress in all the European countries. And in like 1 or 2 years, we're talking about how this would go. I believe that the work on all the registers is going to speed up quite a lot on the coming years.
Okay, we will take only 2 more questions because time is running out. Another question regarding this fragmentation of the European ecosystem is the following. This is very important to know and identify whether your bank or provider is following all regulatory standards. Is that any mechanism to know this? So, I mean, we mentioned the databases for and the registers for UBO. Like any feedback regarding the bank identification?
Basically, yeah, it's when you select a provider, it's critical to make sure that they comply with local regulation and that besides what they can say, there is a kind of source that will attest what they say is true. So in the banking industry, you can basically the licenses that are issued by governments are the right source. And in terms of identity proofing providers and qualified electronic signature providers, you have what is called the EU Trust List, which is public, and that also you can consult. So when you select your provider, ask for some credentials. So they will all say, okay, I'm ISO compliant, etc. It means nothing. Or FIDO compliant, etc. So they need to be validated, qualified, or they need to have a license, and it's what you need to check. It's important. There was an interesting question, if I may, regarding what kind of countries accept qualified electronic signature. This is something we need to combine, but I can cite some. So we will get back to you with a detailed answer. But you have Italy that accepts, you have Spain, you have France, you have Germany, you have Lithuania, you have Greece, you have Belgium, and you have many others. So this is going like mainstream, okay? It's not only one country. And the full list, right now, I don't have it, but this is something that we can get back to you.
And as you mentioned, it's quite a recent tool. So, I mean, it's normal, it's expanding and...
it's expanding fast.
Very fast, yes. And we have another question that seems very interesting. So, which is the following. You said it is preferable not to use a US cloud service provider for PVID, but aren't the main cloud providers such as AWS, Google, and Azure considered as trusted partners for PVID?
No, they're not.
Okay.
No, they're not. And this is not only France. It's because of the Cloud Act and the fact that basically most governments, cybersecurity agencies, do not feel comfortable that super personal information from citizens can get requested by the US with having even being informed. So there are the willingness of regulator in the eIDAS world, which are cybersecurity regulators, is to develop European cloud-based that follow European rules and that are not submitted to the Cloud Act. It's something.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a good question to ask to your provider. If your identity provider is located in AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure, okay, is it a problem for your compliance? How does it work? It's important because you don't have a single qualified provider that is located in an American cloud at the European level, not a single one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is shared in all member states. So it doesn't mean that it will not change in the world in the future. For instance, I saw that Thales and Google Cloud have decided to work together to have a sovereign cloud that supports Google Cloud. So those solutions might be super interesting, but it will be based on a joint venture that will be European-based.
Yes, okay, that's very clear. I think time is running out, but maybe I can ask to our three guests like a few prediction about the market. I mean, what is the future of KYC process in Europe, and what's your best guess about that in 10 years from now?
Jean-Jacques, you start?
Yeah, probably.
So we can think? No.
I would say probably in the future, if you're really talking very far ahead, I would say that local differences will most likely disappear, and there will be most probably just a central register somewhere that will most be likely, if you're talking about Web3 or things like that, that will be able to go onto identity. And there will be a number of providers that will be capable of guaranteeing that the security is the secured access to that kind of register. So I think that is kind of the kind of future I kind of imagine. It's probably more auditability and more simplicity in the process.
All right. We hope so. And
if I may, when you look at the payment industry, you can see that payment schemes have been multiplying and that local specificity are remaining in a market that I think is more mature than identity, because payment has been here for long and more than digital identities. Mm-hmm. And my guess is that you will have local identity schemes that will appear. And users will be super attentive, at least in Europe, regarding the privacy of their data, the way it's managed, and will use trusted brands that they know, and most of the time they will be local. So I anticipate a future where users will have their identity in their pocket, that it will be distributed, can be also on a blockchain, but also on wallets. Issued by government and by the private sector and by trusted service provider like electronic signature providers or like people like ubble. And that will get quite complex, like for payment schemes. So you will need aggregators that will manage different kind of identity schemes. And you will also still need universal solutions like PVID or like, identity proofing classical based on physical identity document to make sure that if the user cannot connect, if he has not downloaded this app, if he has forgot his password, blah, 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 he can still onboard to your service. So I foresee a world with identity platforms managing universal solution, managing many different kind of identity scheme, and that high complexity behind a multi-service API.
Okay. And on the road to this bright future, Stéphie, what are the next steps for Swan in this ecosystem?
I think not even Swan. I really think that in 10 years, the traditional bank will not have the same power that they have now. I really think like all the fintechs across the world and Europe will have like more impact on the regulation, and that all the physical onboarding will slowly die, and that the new there will, as Jean-Jacques was saying, we will have like let's say a European, I won't say global, but maybe a European regulation, and maybe some e-cards when everyone can onboard very easily. And the fact that we are not in physical presence to each other when doing the onboarding won't be like something exceptional. It will be like just the basic. And I really hope, and I think that the country will be smart enough to implement new things, such as like a global like register, or maybe like some software, or maybe some new tools, or maybe new actor will appear. But I really think that from now we are just in a transition. That's why we're paying the price now, that to change everything to make it like more digital. But I really think that in 10 years, and I won't say even 10 years, I think it's like 5 or maybe 4 years, the thing will change. Like since like just before COVID, pre-COVID, the law was not the same, and post-COVID, you can see that they are making more and more effort to make sure that we can be as digital as possible. So that's my hopes.
Yes, very interesting. Well, thanks everyone for your attendance and all your questions. I think it was very interesting to have all these insights and all these discussions about KYC regulatory ecosystem and European landscape. So thanks to our 3 guests, Stéphie, Juliette, and Jean-Jacques. I see in the chat that all the discussion has been very well appreciated. So thanks for your time.
And thank you very much, Gabrielle, for a great moderation and a really nice introduction. Thank you so much.
Thanks also to Arthur and Eva, who did a lot to organize this. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.